And then lastly, the last point I want to make before I get into some of these questions was just how powerful storytelling is. And then especially storytelling around community. This kind of reminds me of the other point I made about trauma recovery and how many times trauma recovery requires some sort of narrative or storytelling so that we can process the trauma, process the events that have happened to us. But this series, Who the Fuck Did I Marry, peak storytelling and community experience. Like, look what can happen when you are open and vulnerable and honest about an experience you have had, when you share a story and do it in the amongst community. And I'm using the word community pretty loosely here because yes, I'm talking about social media, but it started to develop community around it, right? And yes, I'm sure that there are a lot of people who are super judgmental of her and saying negative things, but when I was looking at a lot of those comments, so many of them were so positive. So many of them were grateful for her for sharing her story because it helped them to reconsider a situation. Or so many of them were so encouraging of her, just hoping the best for her, wishing the best for her, sending prayers to her. She started to build community around this. And it's making me think about how sometimes many of us can be so hesitant to open up, to be vulnerable, to share our personal selves, share our personal experiences, be more authentic because we're so fearful about the negative consequences. But the way to connect with people, the way to build relationships, the way to really feel more intimately connected with others is to connect. It is to share yourself. It is to be seen. And Risa's willingness to be seen through the power of her story, through the storytelling process, built community. It built community for people who weren't even looking for community, but it also built community for her. It built opportunities of community for her. Um, so I really felt like it was important to make that note. Something that I wrote, Reese's vulnerability really resonated with millions of people and helped to foster a sense of community and also offered validation for those who have experienced similar situations. Absolutely. Absolutely. She helped millions of people feel seen and heard through her story. And of course, it just makes you think about the impact of social media. And I think we know that many of us who are listening to this, and if you're watching this, you know the impact of social media because we're the millennial generation. We grew up with this. And so we see how impactful it can be. But this series just highlighted it immensely, how powerful it can be. Um, Storytelling and community absolutely can be built online.